My name is Hannah Miller, and I'm 29 years old. What I'm about to share isn't easy. It's one of those truths that doesn't just change how you see your life. It changes how you see yourself. For years, I believed I had everything figured out. A good marriage, a calm home, and a life most people would call perfect. But perfection has a way of hiding what's quietly breaking underneath. When I married Ethan, my college sweetheart, I thought I had found the kind of stability every woman dreams of. He was kind, thoughtful, and safe. He planned things weeks in advance, kept promises, and never raised his voice. Our days followed a rhythm. Breakfast at 7, dinner at 8, weekends spent cleaning or watching movies. It was peaceful, predictable. But somewhere between those routines, I started to lose the sound of my own heartbeat. At first, I ignored that emptiness. I told myself that love matures, that maybe excitement fades and comfort takes its place. Yet some nights, when Ethan sat in bed with his laptop, typing away while silence filled the room, I would feel something stir inside me, a small aching reminder that I was still alive, and that life was supposed to feel more than just fine. That's when Liam began to step out of the background. He had always been there, Ethan's closest friend since childhood. The one who helped us move, who laughed too loudly at our dinner table, who fixed things Ethan never found time for. For years, I saw him as part of the furniture of our lives, familiar, harmless, but lately he'd begun to feel different. Or maybe I had. Liam was everything Ethan wasn't. Unpredictable, warm, a little rough around the edges. He worked with his hands, construction, repairs, things that left tiny scars on his skin. When he smiled, it was never practiced. When he looked at me, it felt like he saw through me, and I hated how much that made my pulse quicken. It began as nothing. Small moments. He'd stop by after work, his shirt still carrying the scent of wood and sunlight, asking if Ethan was around. Sometimes he wasn't. Sometimes it was just me. I'd offer him coffee, maybe a beer if the evening was long, and we'd talk about everything and nothing. His stories were alive, full of color. Mine felt pale in comparison. He'd ask questions Ethan never did. What did I dream about when I was younger? What scared me? What would I do if no one expected anything from me? Those talks made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. And with every word, I felt a dangerous kind of warmth spreading through me. The kind that doesn't belong to a married woman. One evening, after Ethan left for a late meeting, Liam stopped by to fix a loose cabinet. I watched him work, sleeves rolled, focused, humming softly. The air between us was quiet but charged, like a storm that hadn't yet broken. When he stood up, I handed him a glass of water. Our fingers brushed. Just a second. That's all it took. The touch was small, but it sent a spark racing up my arm. I froze. He looked at me, and something in his gaze made the room feel smaller, the silence heavier. My breath caught. For that heartbeat, time held still. Then I stepped back, whispering something meaningless, pretending to rearrange the glass. He said nothing. Neither did I. But we both felt it. That invisible shift, subtle yet irreversible. That night I lay awake beside Ethan, staring at the ceiling. The memory of that touch wouldn't fade. It replayed like a song I couldn't turn off. I told myself it was harmless, that Liam was just a friend, that I was imagining everything. But deep inside, I knew something had begun, something that would test every line I had ever drawn between loyalty and longing. Days turned into weeks, but that brief touch refused to fade. It lingered in the smallest moments. When I washed dishes, when Ethan kissed my forehead before work, even when I tried to lose myself in routine. Every time the phone rang, part of me hoped it was Liam. I hated that I felt that way, but I couldn't stop it. Something had been awakened, and pretending otherwise only made it stronger. Liam still came around, though less often. When he did, I could sense the careful distance he kept. We talked like before, laughter, harmless words. Yet beneath every sentence was an unspoken tension neither of us dared acknowledge. Sometimes our eyes met a second too long. Sometimes our goodbyes felt heavier than they should. The silence between us had become a language of its own. I tried to throw myself into my marriage, to rediscover the warmth Ethan and I once had. He noticed my restlessness, but mistook it for stress. He booked a weekend trip for us, a small cottage by the lake. It should have been romantic, but sitting beside him, watching the sunset reflect over calm water, I realized how quiet our love had become. There was no spark, no pull, just safety. And safety suddenly felt like suffocation. Back home, I avoided seeing Liam for days. I thought distance would cool whatever had begun to grow, but desire doesn't fade with distance. It feeds on memory. The more I tried to push him from my mind, the clearer his image became. The sound of his laugh, the way his hands moved when he spoke, the warmth in his eyes that made me feel known. Then one afternoon, fate, or maybe something far more dangerous, intervened. Ethan had to travel out of town for work, just for a couple of days. I planned to spend the time cleaning, reading, distracting myself. But that evening I heard a knock. When I opened the door, there he was, Liam, holding a small toolbox and that same easy smile. Ethan mentioned the faucet was leaking again, he said, stepping inside before I could answer. My pulse raced. I wanted to tell him it could wait, that it wasn't urgent. But I didn't. He knelt by the sink, fixing the drip that had been echoing in my kitchen for days. I stood nearby, pretending to tidy up, pretending not to watch him. The room felt too quiet. Every sound, the turning of a wrench, the soft hum of his breath, filled the space like a confession. When he finished, he stood, wiping his hands on a cloth. "There," he said softly. "No more leaks." "Thank you," I managed to whisper. Our eyes met. For a long second, neither of us looked away. Something deep and inevitable passed between us. That same invisible current, stronger this time, impossible to deny. He took a step closer. I should have moved, said something, anything, but I couldn't. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. The touch was gentle, deliberate. My breath caught. "Hannah," he murmured, and the sound of my name on his lips was enough to undo every bit of reason I had left. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was him, maybe it was me. But suddenly, the distance between us disappeared. His hand slid to my cheek and his lips met mine. The world tilted, the air trembling with heat and disbelief. It was wrong. Everything about it was wrong. Yet it felt more real than anything had in years. When we finally pulled apart, the silence was deafening. My mind screamed what my heart refused to accept. I whispered, "This can't happen," though my body betrayed the words, still trembling from his touch. He looked at me, not with guilt, not with triumph, but with something raw and unguarded. "I know," he said quietly, "but it already has." The words hung between us, fragile and final. Outside, rain began to fall. Slow, deliberate drops against the window. I wanted to say something, to turn back time, to erase the moment that had just rewritten everything. But when he reached for my hand again, I didn't pull away. And somewhere inside, I knew. This was just the beginning. That night changed everything. After Liam left, the silence in the house felt different. Not peaceful, but charged with what couldn't be undone. I stood there for a long time, tracing the edge of the glass he had touched, trying to slow the rush in my chest. I told myself it was a mistake, that I could bury it, forget it. But some things don't fade. They leave a mark too deep to hide. The next morning, I woke beside Ethan, pretending everything was normal. He smiled, unaware, and I smiled back, the kind of smile that hurts because it's a lie. His arms felt familiar, safe, but not alive. Every word, every laugh between us felt rehearsed. I realized then how far I had drifted. Not from him, but from the version of myself that used to be content. Days passed. I avoided Liam, but his absence only made the air feel emptier. Every time my phone lit up, my heart paused. I wanted him to call, and I wanted him not to. Because I knew. One message, one word, and I'd fall again. I still don't know how this story ends. Maybe the truth will surface and tear apart the quiet life I built. Or maybe it'll stay buried, like embers under ash, still burning, waiting. But one thing I know for certain. What I felt with Liam was real, raw, and impossibly alive. Sometimes the most dangerous truths aren't the ones that destroy us. They're the ones that awaken the parts we forgot existed.